and I respond very quickly that no one can take John Philly's place. And I mean that sincerely, but I've enjoyed being here the last 2 years. This is my second breakfast, and it's wonderful to see so many folks here. This is a crowd much larger than we had last year. We had to bring in two acts, and I think that's great. This morning, though, what we would I'd like to begin, if we could, with Gene Duncan to the invocation, please.
I asked Don for honor, thanks for food which has already been eaten, and he said he would guarantee it. So if you've already eaten, you aren't going to get a cake before you leave. Shall we pray? We are gathered here this morning. The university has chosen to honor its retirees of this university for their many years of service. We ask your blessings upon us all. Grant that your Spirit may be at the center of all that we say and all we do. Thank you now for the food that has been put before us, and especially for the camaraderie which binds us together. Amen.
Good morning again, if I may. Again, I hate to interrupt this conversation, but I'm hoping that many of you will be able to stay around for a number of the festivities that we're having today, and Sue's going to bring you up to date on those and have an opportunity to meet with each other, continue to do so. But President Eaglin asked if I might take just a moment and try and bring you up to date on a few things that are going on around here, and I think, as you'll see when I finish with the list, that we continue to be busy here at Morehead State University. We're in the process of concluding. We have one more in a series of symposia on teacher education conducting since back in January. As many of you are aware, the issue of teacher education has been a major issue nationally in the last number of years especially. We are, for those of you who were here before, back at about 89, 90, we are in the middle of, in the heat of, if you would call it, a SACS accreditation preparation. And if you remember those days, they're not fun, but it's something that we need to do, and they will be visiting our campus a year from now, as a matter of fact, in April, and we think we're going to be very prepared for them, but we're very busy in the process of doing that. For those of you who were involved in our teacher education programs, we did complete successfully in the fall an NCATE reaccreditation, and we just got that final report last week, as a matter of fact, and everything looks very, very, very good with that. We're very pleased to see that. We also, for those of you who might have come from the technology area, achieved accreditation for the first time this past year in NATE, the National Association for Industrial Technology, and that's a major achievement for the faculty in that particular area, and we're pleased to see that. We are in the candidacy stage of accreditation in the AACSB, the Primary Business Accrediting Association, and we hope to have that achieved within about 5 years. Along those lines, another activity that we're engaged in is and I'm sure you've been reading things about it, the Kentucky Commonwealth Virtual University. That's been established as a result of House Bill 1. It's very consistent with the distance learning program that we've had going for some time, but it expands it dramatically throughout the state so that we can provide greater access. And we are very actively involved with that as the Council on Post-Secondary Education continues that particular program, to the point that by this fall, we will have our entire MBA program online, that is on the internet, and available to students in that way so that they don't have to come to campus if they don't want to. We have most of those courses at this point in time, and as a result of that, we have almost tripled our enrollment in the program, which really indicates the needs that are out there, and individuals within the region, and most of those are from within the region, who can't get to campus but have a need for programs of that nature. And it's really serving a need, and we're very proud to be a leader, actually, in that particular arena. Another area we hope to see we will see some leadership, we think, down the road is, again, a result of House Bill 1 and the programs of distinction that were financed by that House bill. In each of the regional institutions, we're told to identify an area of excellence that they would wish to pursue. Ours has been defined as the Institute for Regional Analysis and Public Policy, IRAP as we call it. But it is an interdisciplinary program that pulls together our social sciences of sociology, social work, environmental science predominantly. And the primary goal of that institute is to try to address regional needs, social and environmental needs within the region, and the students will be practicing in those areas, if you will, as part of their program, and will be strengthening each of those academic programs as well. And that program has just started this semester. We've received the funding finally, and we anticipate some significant growth and accomplishments there. We continue to expand our international programs and efforts to enhance the number of international students on the campus. More recently, our efforts have been working with China, and we just recently were hosted this past week an individual who is the director of nursing of one of the major hospitals in a province in southwest China, where they're interested in bringing 20 directors of nursing to our campus to be able to learn about community health and other related management kinds of issues more than anything with regards to nursing. And if that program goes well, there are 500 other directors of nursing that they're interested in sending at some point. This really came out of a program that we started last summer with a group of business people from the same province, many of whom we found out later were vice governors of the conference, province, thank you, I lost the word there. Some of them were mayors of some of the major cities, and they were significant business people and civic leaders throughout the region, and they had a wonderful experience here, and so it's leading to a number of other opportunities, and we're very pleased to see that. Related to that, we've had an invitation for our symphony band to tour and do concerts in China, and they have been very, very busy the last several months and raised the approximately $100,000 plus that it's going to take to get them there, and they're going to be going early in May for about 2 weeks, and they've got concerts several places throughout and around Beijing, and we're very pleased. And apparently, from what we've been told, will be the first institution of higher education to have a symphony band to perform in China. And again, I think that's a major accomplishment. Those are just a few of the things. We have some other things going on as well, but I thought you might want to know what some of those activities are. Let's move on with the program, and to do that, what I'd like to do is to introduce Sue Lucky. First, though, I'd like to thank Sue and the Founders Day Committee for putting this together. I'm a member of that committee, but my schedule kept me from getting to many of those meetings, and so I'm very, very pleased and fortunate that Sue was chairing this, and as you see, has pulled it off very well, and I want to thank Sue.
Thank you, Dr. Moore, and good morning. As I taught, and as many of you taught, I'm sure we looked out over the audience, over our classes, and we said, my, how much younger the students look. Now this morning I'm looking out over the audience and I'm saying, my, how much younger the retirees look. And what I'd like us to do next is to thank President and Mrs. Eaglin for this wonderful breakfast. They've invited us, and aren't we having a good time? Thank you. Let me share with you the plan of the day, plan of the morning. Here, you will line up to my left, to your right, and you will hand me a little yellow card. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then walk across in front of the podium to receive your watch, Dr. Moore, or pen, whichever you're getting, and then photo ops, both places, with the final one with Dr. Eaglin in front of the flags. Those pictures will be taken individually. Now, when we finish with that, we'll ask all of you that received an award to step outside. Now, the rest of you just must keep your seats. And it won't take long to take the picture because you're coming back. See, just like a teacher, Bob. You're coming back, and we're going to have a little business meeting. I'm going to turn everything over to Gene Duncan and John Philly, and they have a lot in store for you, I believe. On your table, you have a little yellow sheet that says 1990 retiree breakfast data card. And if you will fill out all of the information on that card and bring that with you as you come to me at the podium, and I will use that card to call out your name. And while you're filling out that little yellow card now, I want to say that I appreciate your response to the surveys that Jean sent out, and we've received almost 50, and I still have some. If you fail to let us know what you'd like to do or have or want, I have some extra if you'd like to fill them out and give them to me today. And we're going to try to follow through as much as we can with your wishes from that survey. How many of you received this week sometime a letter from William Higginbotham? Dr. Higginbotham is inviting you to an estate planning seminar. Have you received that yet? If you haven't, you will be receiving it on Tuesday, May 4th. An attorney, Renee Montague, she's a Moorhead alumni, and she is coming to hold this seminar from 10:15 to 12:15. Then we have a luncheon in the Heritage Room, $5. You do need to make reservations, but mark Tuesday, May 4, 10:15 to 12:15 for the seminar, and then lunch, but you will need reservations for both. Bob Howerton really arranged this for us. I helped him a little bit because we'd had requests, and even on the surveys, we had requests from you that you would like some information about estate planning. So we hope we see you then. Now, I think we are ready to begin with the awards. If you have your data cards filled out, and if Dr. Moore and Dr. Eaglin will come. And if you'll begin lining up, just come to this side in any order. Been with us, service 17 years and 4 months. Congratulations, Perry. John Osborne is Assistant Professor of Accounting, and he's been with us 23 years. Ben V. Flora, Professor, he's been here 26 years. Ruth Robinson, Administrative Secretary. She has years of service, 27. Iris Jeanette Stone, Senior Periodicals Technician in the library, 20.5 years. Bill Riley, Director of Special Projects. He says 12 plus years. We don't know how many pluses. Jenny Kreger, Counselor in Student Support Services, 20 years of service. Jane Blair, Staff Nurse in Student Health Services, and she served 22 years here. Sue Fannin, Academic Department Specialist in Music, 28 years. Dr. Robert Lorenz, Associate Professor of Marketing, 5 years with us.
Just barely made it.
Doesn't seem possible. Jack Henson, Assistant Professor of Business Ed in the Department of Information Systems, 30 years of service. Not all there, some over here in ADUC, Jack. Diane DeMoss, Administrative Secretary, 27 years. Oh! I thought we had some special coming, Diane. Right. Special somebody. Oh. Robert H. Wolf, Associate Professor of Agriculture, 32 years.
I think so, groundskeeper. 27 years.
That's a long time, 27.9. Jerry L. Stamper, groundskeeper, and he served us 27 years and 9 months. BST, Bill Service. Building Service Technician. Bill Service. Yeah. Okay. Ida M. Stamper, Bill Service Technician, 20 years. And my calculator will not add all those years together. But isn't that a wonderful display of service to Morehead State University? Yes, would you do that, please?
This is really part of a test. We can take this group picture in 2 minutes if you do what you're supposed to do. And what you're supposed to do is stay where you are. And they're not to talk to anybody, shake any hands, come over here and hug anybody or anything until this picture's done. So we're going to go out the door. We'll have this done in 2 minutes. So let's go. So you get in there too.
And I'm going to turn it over to Gene, and he has the show from there out.
Thank you, Sue. Now, first thing that the committee told me about what I was to do this morning is make it short. Well, I have written down everything I'm going to say, and I'm going to read it so I won't take up any more time than necessary. Applause? Folks, I don't know which came first, the bird or the egg. But I observed that one bird, Morehead State's #1 eagle, Dr. Ron Eaglin, decided that there are a lot of birds who at various times have left the nest and scattered to or by the four winds. It was time, he thought, to bring us back together. Pursuant to that line of thinking, he called on one chick who had just left the nest to his office, to wit, Dr. Sue Lucky. If I may quote freely, or misquote even, the president and Sue, I will say to you that Dr. England said to Dr. Lucky, "Sue, you don't look like one who should be put away on a shelf just to look pretty, although you do that very well. Why don't you come down off of that shelf and make yourself useful again?" To which Sue said, "To do what, Your Honor?" To which Ron said, "To call the chicks back to the nest. The waste of so much talent is disgraceful." To which Sue said, "What's the salary and how much do I work per day?" To which Ron said, "There ain't no salary and all the time there is." To which Sue said, "Things haven't changed a bit, have they? But I'll do it." To which Ron said, "Then get busy." Now, this is what he told her to do. Get a group of 6 or 8 retirees who live close by, borrow some of Bill Higginbotham's time, and get to work. So Sue invited a group together, which she called her advisory committee. She chose a retired coach, Earl Bentley, a retired secretary, Betty Philly, a retired librarian, Jack Ellis, and a retired dean who's standing before you. And oh yes, because it is quite obvious that good spouses make good spouses, she decided that each spouse's spouse should be a member of the committee. Now you figure that one out. Now I want the members of that advisory committee to stand wherever you are out here in the audience. Will you stand and be recognized? Come on. I believe they're all here. Now, Bill Higginbotham, where are you? Bill has been a very, very important member of this group. He's, I don't know whether he works for Sue or Sue works for him, but they both work for the president. As you know, from many years of experience, when a committee organizes itself, it usually elects the loudest mouth in the group to be the chairman, and that's why I was elected, and that's why I stand before you. The advisory committee met a number of times during the past year and a half, and early in its deliberations, it decided, without opposition, that we really do need to reinstate the retired organization which we had at one time. So a letter was mailed to all retirees stating that on Founders Day of 1999, in connection with the retirees' breakfast, we would vote for or against the advisory committee's proposal. So here we are. The time has come. The committee instructed me to do 3 things, and I'm going to do those 3 and nothing else. First, ask for a motion for or against the establishment of the Morehead State University Retirees Association. So I call for a motion, if there be such a motion. Support. Support? And I saw a hand go back there. Is that a second? All right. All right. Is there any discussion? No? Well, good. Then it carries. So, so we now have the organization. Now, assuming that a positive vote would be taken at this meeting, the advisory committee declared itself to be a nominating committee, and the slate of the persons so nominated was mailed out to you. It consists of, in case you don't remember, I guess you have it on your table, don't you? Standing for President, John C. Philly. For Vice President, I'm standing before you. And for Secretary Treasurer, Jack Ellis. Are there any nominations from the floor? I hear a motion that the three be elected by acclamation. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Then acclaim. All right. I declare the office is filled. Now, the third thing that the committee asked me to do, and this is the last thing they asked me to do, is to introduce the officers and sit down and shut up. Dr. John C. Philly, your new president.
I thought the railroad had quit running through Moorhead. I distinctly heard that whistle going just a moment ago. I didn't write down what I was going to say, Gene, so we may be here a while. Betty's looked at me very quizzically there. But let me tell you something about this slate of officers. I made every meeting of the advisory committee. However, there was one meeting that I had to leave 5 minutes early. And when I got home and Betty told me that I had been nominated to be president of this organization, I thought I had learned my lesson a long time ago, but I thought surely in 5 minutes they couldn't do much to me, but I was very, very mistaken. But I am honored to have been chosen. I don't really think Gene called for a vote, you have a chance to vote me out. But I'm sure that Gene and Jack and I will do our very best to provide some leadership for this reinstated, newfound organization. And we will try to review very carefully the results of the survey that you have returned, and I'm sure we'll get a few more. And we will make our best effort to implement as many of those as we can in the coming year. To help us do that, the organization, at least the committee for the organization, established 3 standing committees at this point. And you have the names of those 3 standing committees on the same yellow sheet. And these are all subject to change, but at least we had to get started. But for program and activities, we've asked Clyde James and Betty Philly to co-chair that committee, and they have agreed to do that. For public relations and publicity, we have asked Judy Yancey and John Duncan to assume the chairmanship of that. And for social activities, Lamerle and Earl Bentley have agreed to do that. I would tell you all, and I would tell the co-chair persons, that we would want volunteers for each of those committees. They do not have to do all the work by themselves. They can reach out and ask others. But if you see an area there in which you would like to help, I'm sure they would be most happy to receive your help. So keep that in mind. As far as social activities go, I think this is basically a social activity, and we've had this Founders Day breakfast for retirees to honor new retirees and invite old retirees. Old retirees, that's redundant, I guess, isn't it? And I would anticipate that this particular event will continue every year, and this will essentially be our annual meeting to announce new officers and to turn over the reins of leadership to others as we go from year to year.
One other thing that we had not covered that you need to know, that you are being represented on the alumni board. Dr. Earl Bentley is our representative on the alumni board, so you are represented there, and in all of this we failed to tell you that that's the case. Are there any questions or comments further? Dr. Edlin.
You don't have to worry about me talking too long because I got to lead a convocation here in just a moment. Congratulations on the formal organization of this group. I do hope that it becomes an active group and that you do stay involved with one another. And also I want to encourage you to be involved in the rest of the proceedings throughout today. The convocation is a very special one. One of the person receiving that award is a very special lady. All of you who know her, I think, Carolyn Flatt, and we're very pleased that she has been selected for this service award. Also, Jody Richards, Speaker of the House, will be our speaker today. He's outside kind of waiting for me to greet him. But also this afternoon, and it's kind of maybe the sad side of when people get to retirement age. From time to time, we do lose persons who have been affiliated with this institution. We lost really one of our original faculty members not long ago, 90-plus years old, Ms. Sample. And I would hope that this publicity committee might even consider as part of its charge really kind of a memorial part of that, a committee out of that. I think it's always nice that we would have something to say about those who to pass on. Also today, the Memorial Plaza has really, I think, captured the spirit of a lot of our folks of staying involved with the university. I notice from time to time, living in public housing like I do and living on campus, I'll go up on weekends and I'll see family up around the bell tower going to the Memorial Plaza, seeing the bricks of their relatives or their friends. And today we also have that service, and in the back of the program you will see those who will be have their bricks placed in Memorial Plaza today. And that's kind of a moving ceremony. If the weather's nice and you feel up to it, I would highly suggest that you participate in that. But I want to personally thank all of you for the many, many years of service that you've given to this institution. And everyone is exactly correct. There are so many good things built on the leadership of Dr. Grody. And by the way, Dr. Dorn was going to be here today. He had a little setback in his health. He had an operation, as you know, in the fall. And there was a little scarring that was not healing the way they wanted, and they were going to go back in and correct the scarring. And so he was going in for surgery actually today. But I was assured that it was minor surgery, but time you go in and you go under, you worry and need to pray about that. But he would have been here today to join us also. I would like to meet just for about 5 minutes with the officers of this group. And Buford, is Buford still here, Carter? Yeah, Buford, could you join that group with us too? Other than that, thank you so much for coming. Please enjoy the room as much as you want, and I hope all of you will come across for the convocation. We need to be seated around 10:15. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I am pleased on behalf of our entire campus community to welcome you to this special occasion at Morehead State University. We are glad to have you here today as we celebrate our 77th birthday as a public institution. Your program has details on each event that will be happening this day. At this point, please join us in thanking our piper, Mr. Ross Martin of Lexington, for leading our academic procession with the traditional sound of bagpipes, which meant so much to the ancestors of many of those who settled in eastern Kentucky. Ross told me on the way over that I had to dock his pay some because he had to take his hat off because of the wind today, but I told him we'd just judge him on his music, and he did a wonderful job. We are also pleased to recognize our faculty grand marshal, your and ours, David McGrain, professor of biology. David? At this time, I invite you to stand with us as the MSU concert choir and wind and I think the wind got to my tongue today. At this time, to stand with us for the MSU concert choir and wind ensemble on the direction of Greg Detweiler. They are going to present the alma mater. At that time, after it's over, if you could sit down, and then they will have some musical treats for us. So would you please rise for the playing of the alma mater.
Thank you. We are honored today to have a former president of the institution with us today. I'd like for him to stand and be recognized. President Emeritus Nelson Grody and the First Lady, Mrs. Grody, please, if you would stand. I know Wilma's here somewhere. Thank you. On the stage with us today are two members of our Board of Regents. They are Student Regent Michelle Francis, Faculty Regent Mr. Mitchell could not be with us today, and Staff Regent Gene Caudle. If you would rise, please. Before we proceed, please allow me to present many of the special guests who have joined us today for this special event. We are fortunate to have many of our good friends in the Kentucky General Assembly. Now, it's always dangerous to do this, you realize, because when you're sitting up here, you got lights in your face. You can't get out here early to see who's here and who's not. But I have a list of who's supposed to be here. And I'm going to put all the names out, and if they would please rise and let us show our appreciation for all the work that they do for us in this region. First, Senator Walter Blevins, Sandy Hook. Walter. Representative John Will Stacy of West Liberty. John Will. Representative Rocky Atkins of Sandy Hook, and I haven't seen Rocky. I was looking around. You know, Rocky has a way, and you all tell him this, and John Will did this to a time until I finally got on to him a little bit. I'd get up in front of everybody and I'd introduce them, and they wouldn't be here. And I thought what they did is they waited outside until I did that, and then I'd say, well, I guess they have something else or something detained them, and then I'd go on in the program, and then they'd walk in, so I'd have to introduce them 2 times. Representative Robin Webb of Grayson. Robin. One of the highlights of Founders Day is the presentation of the University Service Award, and we are pleased today to have several previous recipients and family members of other winners of that award. Now, all their names are in the program, and you might refer to it, but those of you who are former recipients of the Founders Award, if you're in the audience, would you please stand, please? I know Dr. Pelfrey and some others here. There we go. Thank you. We're certainly pleased to have all of you back on the campus. We're also proud of our longtime good relationships with local government leaders. And please welcome Round County Judge Executive Clyde Thomas. Clyde. And Moorhead Mayor Brad Collins. Brad. We also have other special guests in our audience today. She probably didn't expect for me to introduce her, but she has set a precedent in helping us bring interest to this campus. Ms. Lucille Caudle Little. Lucille, if you would stand up and be recognized. And now I'd also like to present, and there have been times where I've forgotten this, which means I'll never forget it again, but I would like to present the First Lady of Morehead State University, Bonnie Eaglin. And also I'd like to have stand all the families and guests of our platform party. There's quite a contingent here, I think, from the flats. If you all would stand up and be recognized. Now here to present the 1999 Founders Day Award for the University Service is the staff representative of our Board of Regents. He serves as Assistant Director of the Physical Plant, Mr. Gene Caudle.
Thank you, President Eaglin. I'm very pleased to be here today representing the Board of Regents at this special, very important ceremony. Founders Day Award is the highest recognition afforded by this institution to those who have served in a superior fashion over a long, sustained period of time. On behalf of the Board of Regents and the campus community, it is my privilege to make such an award today. The person has earned the respect and the admiration of all of her friends, her colleagues, and more importantly, her students. At this time, I invite Carolyn Flatt to join me at the podium. The printed program tells us many of the facts in her life, but perhaps her highest praise lies in the words of one of her students who said she inspired them to care for others as a way to live, a way to forgive, and a way to make the world a better place. An accomplished writer and editor, she built on the foundation laid by Mrs. Doran and took the Personal Development Institute to even greater heights before retiring last year. Graduate of Freed-Hardeman College, and as I found out this morning, that's also where she met her husband, Don. And of MSU, she is a former public school teacher and the mother of two. Today, this award expresses the gratitude of each person whose life she has touched, and we are pleased to recognize her and place her as a woman of grace, a woman of compassion, and now as a woman of courage. So on behalf of the Board of Regents and the entire university, I am pleased to present Carolyn Flatt with the 1999 Founders Day Award for University Service.
Needless to say, I am grateful and surprised beyond description to be receiving this honor. This institution has already given so much to me by way of opportunity to work for many, many years in an atmosphere of fairness and goodwill. I am grateful to President and Mrs. Doran, who urged me to continue my education when I was ready to quit, and they were the first to open doors of opportunity to me, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart. I'm grateful to godly parents and to a closely knit family of older sisters and an older brother who instilled in me a value system that prepared me for dealing with setbacks and for living life to the fullest with honesty and kindness. And I'm so delighted that one of my sisters is here today with her husband and her son, who is one of my very favorite people in the whole world. I am grateful to approximately 10,000 students who have been in my classes and have encouraged me by responding enthusiastically to the instruction of the Personal Development Institute with the message that says one must go beyond professional training to be truly educated. One must learn how to live as well as how to make a living. It's a message of hope, which to me is the most beautiful word in our language. I am grateful to my husband and children who have been by my side, and children-in-law who have been by my side every step of my professional life and have supported me with incredible patience and love in my personal struggles and successes. I wish I had an honor equivalent to the one you have given me to give to them. And a special thanks to 9 fantastic grandchildren who are the icing on the cake of my life. And all 9 of them are here today. I hope it isn't inappropriate for me to ask them to stand. They are so special to me. Future MSU students, I'm sure. I am grateful to dear friends who nominated and supported me for this award, and to the committee and President Eaglin who decided my worthiness. I thank God for all the blessings that He has given me and ask Him to continue to fill my life with purpose. Finally, I quote Eleanor Roosevelt, who describes the philosophy that I have had for myself, my children, and my students. If at the end one can say, this man used to the limit the powers that God granted him, he was worthy of love and respect and of the sacrifices of many people made in order that he might achieve what he deemed to be his task, then that life has been lived well and there are no regrets. Again, thank you, dear friends, precious family, and former colleagues.
We are pleased on this historic occasion to welcome someone who feels right at home on campus because of his service at Western Kentucky University as a journalism professor. Your program has the details of his background, but I want each of you to know why we hold this man in such high esteem. He served in the Kentucky House of Representatives for nearly 20 years. Before the membership recognized his great leadership ability, when in 1995 they elected him as Speaker of the House. He is an authority on education at all levels in Kentucky. But we are especially proud of his intense personal interest in post-secondary education. He holds degrees from Kentucky Wesleyan and the University of Missouri, and he serves on the Southern Regional Education Board. He is now a businessman in Bowling Green. He is respected by both parties for his integrity, his fairness, and his leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in greeting the Speaker of the House of the Kentucky House of Representatives, the Honorable Jody Richards.
Dr. Eaglin, Dr. Grody, fellow platform guests, distinguished faculty, Judge, Mayor, Ms. Little, my dear fellow General Assembly members, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this warm welcome. I'm deeply honored you asked me here today to help celebrate the founding of this great university, Morehead State, to remember the past and look to the future. It has been said that no one, not even if we live to the age of Methuselah, could repay the debt we owe to the past. That is certainly true here at Morehead. And it's altogether appropriate that the university community pauses each year to pay tribute to the men and women whose broad vision and hard work brought this institution to the honored status it enjoys across the Commonwealth and around America today. On days like this, we realize how indebted we are to Kentuckians who created and nurtured institutions like this. This dynamic university is certainly one of Kentucky's greatest assets. Every day, graduates of Morehead State enrich the Commonwealth with their leadership. Every day, too, Morehead State enriches the minds and provides direction for thousands of future leaders. I know there are people here today who are responsible for many of this university's successes. We all applaud you and thank you. You have every right to be proud. This university has come a long way in the decades since its founding, and certainly in recent years. If the school's founders could see this campus, they would know their special vision of this extraordinary educational institution has been realized. When the mountains cried out for higher learning, for qualified teachers, they rightly envisioned a thriving teachers' college to answer a desperate need. Over the years, this school has grown and evolved into a comprehensive university, offering highly regarded academic programs to a diverse disciplines, meeting the needs of a dynamic society. If the founders could be here today, they would be pleasantly surprised to see how their old Morehead Normal School has grown, developed, and prospered. It would be exciting to introduce them to succeeding generations of leaders who followed in their footsteps to wisely invest in this university, adding new buildings and new programs to the campus and making the necessary improvements to prepare for the 21st century. It would be exciting to take them into the classrooms to show them how distinguished teachers, cutting-edge research, and the wonders of new technology are preparing students to be leaders in the next century. It would be exciting for the founders to see that Kentucky has truly learned, that universities like Morehead State must be centers of synergy, creativity, and change that both prepare us and guide us as we engage the challenges of the 21st century. I know that they would be very pleased, probably a bit surprised, and without doubt extremely proud to see the development here and elsewhere in the Kentucky university system. And what is being done is nothing less than creating a new vision for Kentucky. A vision that, among other things, embraces this simple truth: a state that values higher education is a state where the future is bright and the opportunities are unlimited. Our new vision of Kentucky began taking shape over the last decade or so and grows clearer every day. That vision has given birth to a new spirit of confidence in Kentucky. There's a new belief in Kentucky's ability to plant seeds of opportunity and bring them full term. And it's fair to say that the work being done at universities across the state have made people rethink the state's potential and raised welcome expectations of excellence. Around the state, there are Kentuckians who no longer passively wait for someone else to jumpstart our economic engine. They go out and start a business. No longer satisfied with ranking near the bottom in education, they join the school council and help make the Kentucky Education Reform Act work. No longer gripped with helpless feeling that they cannot raise the standard of living for their families, they go back to college, acquire a skill, and get a better job at one of the many manufacturing plants locating around our Commonwealth. Our old passive attitude is history. We firmly believe each of us can help chart Kentucky's course for the future, and in so doing, take charge of our own future. Just consider some of the ways the world is seeing Kentucky in a new light. A recent study placed Kentucky among the highest echelon of states in the nation in terms of state government management. That extensive study was conducted by Syracuse University and reported in a recent edition of Governing magazine. The report gives Kentucky excellent ratings in every single area that it graded: capital management, financial management, information technology, human resources, and managing for results. The report applauded Kentucky's effort to upgrade technology and management practices and praised the 1998 to 2000 budget passed by the General Assembly, which allowed for investments in much-needed capital projects. It is all a part of the new vision of Kentucky. Who could have predicted 20 years ago that we would have come so far? Who could have said that Kentucky would be making such great strides? I think it's safe to say Kentucky's high ranking comes as more of a surprise to people outside of the state than those of us who live here. Based on my years in Frankfort, I can say confidently Kentucky now has its strongest economy ever and its strongest commitment to a healthy economic development. The state is heading in the right direction and is starting to see the rewards and results for the progressive attitude being cultivated. Kentucky regularly ranks among the top 10 states in terms of creating jobs. Already more than 125 of the Fortune 500 largest United States corporations have production facilities here. And more than 90 of the world's 500 largest companies, as identified by Fortune magazine, have operations in Kentucky. It is a fact that Kentucky has become one of the top 3 or 4 automobile manufacturing states in the nation. And 1998 was a record year for creating employment, with a net creation of more than 25,000 jobs. For too often, though, and now still, too few of those jobs have been created in eastern Kentucky. In fact, 19 out of the 49 Appalachian counties had no new jobs created through state programs. To help change that, Governor Paul Patton announced in January the new Appalachian Push, an initiative to attract jobs and economic prosperity to eastern Kentucky counties. The governor has said he will lead that effort in combination with existing resources such as the Kentucky Appalachian Commission and the East Kentucky Corporation to find creative approaches to bring good jobs, high-paying jobs, to eastern Kentucky. The new vision for eastern Kentucky includes making the most of the Kentucky Education Reform Act and the Higher Education Reform of 1997. The Education Reform Act has brought an equalization of educational opportunities for many mountain children and for other school children as never before. For example, in results released this week, Wrigley Elementary School in Morgan County and Botts Elementary School in Menifee County were among 2 of the top schools in Kentucky in reading and science, respectively. This is true in spite of the fact that Wrigley has 83% and Botts about 85% of the students living below the poverty level. This kind of achievement would not have been possible before the Education Reform Act.
but it means with inspired teachers, eager students, and adequate resources, schools across Kentucky have an equal opportunity for success. There must be a new emphasis on basic and advanced technological education. Many Kentucky young people, including mountain youth, need high-tech training in addition to a first-class liberal arts education. Legislators believe that with proper emphasis and funding, Kentucky can leap to the forefront among states in the use of technology. At the college and university level, for job creation and job training, and for business operation and manufacturing. During recent sessions of the General Assembly, particularly in 1998, funds were appropriated to make significant advancement of higher education in Kentucky a reality. Major higher education projects have been approved, including a Moorhead Center at West Liberty and one in Prestonsburg. Infrastructure improvements, particularly an excellent road system, clean water and sanitary sewer lines, are also vitally important for future economic development. In addition, very significant expenditures authorized by the legislature for the construction of school buildings across this state have been made through the School Facilities Construction Commission. It's fair to observe that Kentucky's system of school buildings is one of the most modern in America, but we have a way to go yet. Also, the $200 million in the 1998-2000 budget for technology in public and elementary schools makes Kentucky a leader in school technology for use by students. The Commonwealth must continue its commitment to modern facilities and state-of-the-art technology. Although recent sessions of the General Assembly have appropriated millions of dollars for infrastructure improvements, we're committed to a further allocations to raise the level of infrastructure in eastern Kentucky. The old conceptions about Appalachia are no longer valid. There are resources in abundance and tools to attract potential employers, improve roads, water and sewer systems, regional industrial parks, tourism development, and outstanding institutions of higher learning like this one. And certainly the richest resource in eastern Kentucky is the power and persistence of its people. What we have to do is aggressively get that message out. Again, I say among the great resources in Kentucky is this very university. And it plays a key role that cannot be overstated. It seems as if every time there's a discussion about economic development and jobs, that discussion centers upon education. Never before has the quality of education been so vital to a state's economic well-being. Companies looking at Kentucky ask if we have educated workers to offer them, and wonder if the state has good schools for their families to move here. That's why we must follow through with the commitment that's been made to our system of higher education. Our goal should be that the college-going rate, high school graduates that attend college, will continue to greatly increase. Further, it should be our goal that more college students will successfully complete their degrees and that our best and brightest students will remain in the state. It is said that 85% of a space shuttle's fuel is used in the first 2 minutes after blastoff. That's how success takes off. Getting started, picking up momentum. That's where the hard work, energy, and diligence are most desperately needed. That's the kind of hard work that has been done at Moorhead, and in many ways, that kind of diligence is being seen across the state. 2 years ago, the legislature and the governor took a bold new step in reforming Kentucky's system of higher education. Today at Moorhead and elsewhere, we're already seeing this blueprint for success begin to take shape. That includes the new Commonwealth Virtual University, which will be going online this fall. With it, we will bring post-secondary training to people who otherwise do not have the time or access to a post-secondary school to obtain a degree. This university will provide such things as diverse as continuing education for our firefighters, to a master's degree in speech-language pathology. As the years progress, more programs will be added. On other fronts, Moorhead has taken a leadership role in improving teacher training, which will be addressed during the 2000 regular session. The General Assembly will look to Moorhead for ways we can make positive changes in our teacher preparation. As for students, this fall, Kentucky will fund the first ever Keys scholarships, which will go to those high school students who perform well academically and attend a post-secondary institution in Kentucky. These scholarships are making a college education more accessible to deserving students by using lottery proceeds to fund higher education scholarships. While the state has met many challenges, there are others awaiting us. One of the most perplexing problems confronting education in Kentucky concerns the lifelong hands-on learning that must be available to Kentucky's workforce. It has been estimated that 75% of the workforce in use in the year 2010 has already completed high school. For the most part, the same workers will be working as are now, but they'll be older. Now consider the fact that some experts believe that 90% of the knowledge and 90% of the technology in use by the year 2020 has not yet been invented or is not yet known. You can see that the state faces an enormous challenge in the coming years to educate and re-educate our adult workforce, a process that will truly last a lifetime. Kentucky's success in the new century will depend upon our ability to foster a continuing thirst and a greater knowledge among our citizens and a determined commitment to provide that knowledge. Moorhead has been and remains a leader in that effort, and I commend you for it. But I also urge you to press on. I urge you to take a cue from Moorhead's founders. Those founders would be proud of the energy and creativity gathered in this hall today. They would be proud of Moorhead, and they would be proud that the normal school has grown into a great university. They would be proud of all who followed them and who carried on their vision. They would be proud, but they would not be satisfied. Indeed, we in the General Assembly realize we have much work left to be done. We are not satisfied, and we will not rest upon our accomplishments. Our new vision of Kentucky is a commonwealth on the move, a commonwealth of ideas and innovation, a commonwealth leading the nation in education reform, a commonwealth on the cutting edge of technology, a commonwealth that leads the nation in the productivity of its workers, a commonwealth the nation looks up to and not down upon, a commonwealth we're proud to call home. In that spirit, let's push on and continue creating a new vision of Kentucky. In so doing, let's keep alive the optimistic, can-do spirit of Moorhead's visionary founders for having the courage to make visions come true. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to have you come back up here if you will. I don't have many opportunities to share with important people in this state what they mean to all of us. I think anyone who listened attentively to your words realize your commitment over time and with a great deal of quality to this Commonwealth. I want to say this to my colleagues in the audience and to the friends of this university. As we go into this next millennium, we are very fortunate to have in that General Assembly people like Jody Richards. It's a different time. I've been around 30 years dealing with legislators in more than one state. I've been in situations where when higher education folk came into the room, all the legislatures just turned off their ears because they knew what the new asks would be. We all who've been around a while know that. But the new era is, what can we do together? How can everybody win? How can this new system that Dr. McCall is leading win? How can K through 12, P through 12 win? How can post-secondary education win? And most importantly, how can the people of the Commonwealth win? That only can happen in an era of complete openness and willingness to listen to one another. It doesn't surprise me that this state has been singled out among the top in terms of its efficiency, because all one has to do is look at its leadership. And Mr. Speaker, I do want to say to you that we at Morehead State University see ourselves as contributors to the dream. And we thank you for your words, and we want to give this to you as a token of your time here. You don't have to worry about putting that on your account for where you've been, because it's not worth that much in money. But it's sure worth that much in terms of what we feel about you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Before we conclude, I want to show how wise a president can be. Now, Mr. Speaker, in your work, I know you have to count noses, right? It's just a fact of life. On anything that takes hard work, you start counting noses. Now, I made a comment today that sometimes you have to introduce somebody twice. Well, I'd like to introduce Rocky Atkins. Rocky, would you please stand and wave to the crowd? This concludes our program this morning. We hope that you will join us at the other events throughout the day. There's still the luncheon, which is a very important luncheon for the institution. And also at 2 o'clock, the memorial service that we hold around the little bell tower. If you all would rise, our piper will come back. He will lead the procession out and the faculty out, and then at that time you are free to leave also. clockwork today. This morning I told at the retirees breakfast that I could get 25 people's picture taken in 2 minutes and back into the room. By golly, we did it. But there was one rule: you had to listen to me. Thank you, Mrs. Egan.
I've been here all the time.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're so pleased to have you today, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our 1999 Founders Day Luncheon. It's been a great day so far. I just marvel. The weather cooperated. Last night, the life of a president living on campus can sometimes be exciting. Last night at 2 o'clock, I got a telephone call from a very wide-awake co-ed to a very, very sleepy and in deep sleep president. 1 hour and 15 minutes later, we worked out her problem and I went back to bed. But I very seldom am up at 2 o'clock in the morning, as I look around the room and seeing that many of you have the same color hair that I do, those of you who have hair. That most of you are probably, like me, asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning. I can guarantee you that that is not true at this end of the city. We're grateful to the Board of Trustees of the MSU Foundation for hosting this event and for their continued support of the university. At this time, I would invite Reverend Tim Rhodes to the microphone, a member of the Foundation Board, to offer our invocation.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day that you've given us, this beautiful day and the good weather. And we thank you for this very special occasion. Thank you for the guests who are with us today, and we ask your blessings upon all of them. And Father, we thank you for our university and for the many opportunities you've given us over these years. We thank you for the leadership you've sent our way. We thank you for a caring faculty and staff. We thank you for special people like Carolyn Flatt and many others who have made a difference in people's lives. Thank you for the students, and please help us and challenge us to continue to care about them, to guide them, to teach them, to prepare them for life and for success. We thank you now for this food and for those who prepared it, and please bless it to our bodies to your service. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. We invite you to enjoy your lunch and appreciate the music that is provided by Professor Jay Flippin, Emmy nominee, how about that, of our music faculty. Please enjoy your lunch. Well, the time has come for us to start our program, and let's thank Jay Flippin for his fine work. It's now my pleasure to introduce our friends at the head table before we introduce our speaker and honor those who have honored us with their generosity. If you could just kind of hold your applause and let me introduce everyone. They may want to stand up. They may want to stand up. They can certainly do whatever they want to do. Our Founders Day Award recipient and her husband, they're not up here, but I'd like for us to recognize them, Carolyn and Don Flatt. Where are y'all? Starting on my extreme right,
Mr. and Mrs. Proc Cottle. Proc is the chair of the foundation board. Bobby and Proc. Certainly no stranger to Moorhead, and we've all prospered from her generosity, but more than that, from her personality and her perseverance. And we're always glad to have her back home, Lucille Little of Lexington. Bonnie M. Eaglin, First Lady, Moorhead State. I'm going to skip over the next person and then go to our speaker, our wonderful speaker, our speaker today at our convocation, and of course, Speaker of the House, Jody Richards. And we have Tim and Cindy Rhodes. Tim. And Keith Capus, who will be at the microphone in a moment. And really, Keith is just really a person behind the scenes who helped everything through this really complex day work, and we're very pleased for what he's done. We have some legislative friends out in the audience. If they could just hold your applause, have them all stand up, and I hope they're all here because I don't want to hear any more guff about what I do when they're not. Senator Walter Blevins, Representative John Will Stacy, Representative Rocky Atkins, and Representative Robin Webb. Thank you. We are honored today to have as our guest speaker our newest colleague in the Kentucky post-secondary education family. He is the first president, permanent president, of the Kentucky Community and Technical College System, and is responsible for managing 13 community colleges and 15 technical colleges. I met him first in South Carolina and know his excellent reputation is well earned. He has become very quickly a strong member of the Conference of Presidents and truly understands how and why all of us as leaders of post-secondary education must work together to serve the Commonwealth. There are a lot of other pieces of information about him in the program, but so he has as much time as he needs. Please join me in greeting President Mike McCall.
Thank you, Dr. Eaglin, for that introduction. And good afternoon, distinguished alumni, administrators, faculty, staff, and friends of Moorhead State University. I'm truly honored by the invitation to speak to you at this really, really important day. And I want to extend my own personal congratulations to Ms. Flatt for the award that has been bestowed upon her, a very fitting award today. And I'm honored to be a part of the ceremony as well. I'd like as well to extend my thanks to a few people. Dr. Eaglin has recognized the legislators that are here. Their presence certainly represents their support of Moorhead and higher education in general. And a special thanks to Speaker Richards. I really enjoyed the message that he sent to us this morning in talking about higher education, the value of higher education, and especially about the value of this university to the Commonwealth, and particularly to this area as well. So I'd also like to recognize Richard Kendall, who is the director of Ashland Technical College, is one of my colleagues. I'm certainly glad to have you here with us as well. But there's one special acknowledgement that I'd like to take just a moment to recognize in the audience today, and Dr. Nelson Grody. He served as former president of Moorhead State, but he also has a relationship with me in that he served as the executive vice president of KCTCS about 6 months of the year prior to me coming this time last year, as a matter of fact. Dr. Grody gave my organization a great deal of experience and stability. and his steady hand has helped guide KCTCS through some difficult times, and we owe him a great deal of gratitude, and I thank you, Nelson, for all that you've done. Thanks, sir. And you know, of course, Dr. Grody's successor, Dr. Eaglin, as he's indicated, he was a colleague of mine in South Carolina. As a matter of fact, Dr. Eaglin and I worked in adjoining counties. I was president of a technical college when he was at Coastal Carolina. So if there's anything you really want to know about Ron, of course it works both ways too, Ron, I know that. so I have to be real careful. You know, while South Carolina was home for me for over 10 years, I'm quickly becoming accustomed and have made Kentucky now my home. My wife Carolyn and I, we have 3 children, and we've got a senior in high school, our youngest, and so she's finishing up in high school this year. So they'll be joining us this summer, but we have purchased a home now, and so we're in the process of getting ready to close that. So somebody did say to me the other day, well, I guess you're going to stay for a while anyhow. So I intend to certainly stay. And I got my first taste this morning of the wonderful Kentucky mountains and driving over from Lexington this morning. I'm an avid outdoorsman myself. I enjoy a number of things, hunting and being outside as well. And in the beautiful sunshine this morning, especially after that rain last night and thunderstorm that came through, I wasn't real sure what the drive was going to be like. But I almost just stopped and pulled off and wanted to stay with nature for a while, but I thought Dr. Eaglin might not really appreciate that, so I decided to come on here as well. When I was invited to speak today, you know, I asked myself, and I talked to Dr. Eaglin to say, you know, what particular message would you like me to give? And he indicated, you know, our system is new. We've got a brand new system of higher education that has been born in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So I thought I'd take a few minutes this afternoon. I want to do 3 things in talking about higher education. And first is I want to talk about my vision. What does Mike McCall see as the vision for KCTCS? And secondly is how it fits into the spectrum of higher education. That's part of why I'm here today, because we are a major part and a collaborative and a partner in higher education. And then talk about the third part. I want to speak briefly about the value of development in higher education, because development is an important part, and I'm talking about financial development because we certainly look for resources wherever we can. When the position and what Kentucky was doing in 1997 in the special session that was called to look at reform in higher education, it sent some shock waves throughout the United States in terms of what's going on, what's going to happen in Kentucky, and how is it going to address the future. And as time went on, people certainly looked at it. So there's a great keen interest in higher education, especially what's happening in Kentucky, not only in Kentucky, but throughout the whole higher education arena throughout the United States. Just like was a great deal and continues to be a great deal of interest in how South Carolina implemented performance funding as a method of distributing dollars. So when I became interested in particularly to take a look at perhaps assuming the presidency of this new system of higher education, a number of people asked me, they said, why in the world would you want to do something like that? You've got a good job and you enjoy what you're doing. You've got great interaction with business and community. The system has a good reputation. And I had others who said, you know, if you do go to Kentucky, I want to come with you. So there was that excitement and enthusiasm. And I came, though, because of what I saw, the value of higher education in Kentucky. What this state was doing, the message that it was sending is that it placed a high value on higher education and how it was going to be part of the future for 2020 in particular. And that was an important part for me, and it was a challenge, I guess, in every job I've ever had. I've never taken one that's been rather complacent and we'll just kind of keep it status quo. I've spent my entire career in 2-year colleges. Believe it or not, this is my 30th year in working in different, this will be the third state that I've worked in. So I'm committed to what happens in two-year colleges and community and in technical colleges. So if you ask me what was my vision for KCTCS, I'd say one vision, though, what I'm really looking at over the next few years is I want to make sure and let us develop the premier two-year education system in the United States that would be second to none, that it would be envied by the nation and across the United States, but across the world as well, because we're in a global economy now. It's not just what happens here in Kentucky or just what happens in the United States, but what is happening in the world. What's happening in Kosovo will have an impact on what we're doing here today. And so you may ask, well, you know, this is new. This is brand new. I've never started a system in my life. I've served as a president. You know, how do you do something like that? How do you get a system started in taking two different entities and putting them together? So when I came, the first thing that I did, and I met with my staff the first morning that I came on board, and I walked into a room, and on the board, I wrote 3 letters, and I wrote ASK. And I want them to remember, and I want you to remember, this is what I'm doing right now, and that is, I want to ask a lot of questions. I've got to find out what this KCTCS is about, what makes it tick, but I also want them to ask me. I want the community to ask me. I want legislators. I want business and industry. I want to be asked much like I want to ask the same questions as well. And so the ASK also stands for something else, and I'm a believer in acronyms, and so the A also stands for assess. And what I'm going to go about doing in the first 6 months of my presidency is to assess where we are, to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the piece of legislation that was created and what we have to work with, to find out what the strengths and weaknesses of our two systems of community and technical colleges are. And as I assess, then I need to seek support, and that's what the S stands for, support. Now, we're young. When you begin thinking about a new system, I mean, it is brand spanking new. We're less than a year old. In '98, in July of '98, we came as one. I don't have the benefit of what Moorhead has. It's young in comparison to some of the land-grant institutions that were created. So there's a great deal of history that has evolved in the support of higher education, but this is a new one. And so we need to garner and earn that support. We need to earn it through the legislators, business and industries, the communities, the other segments of higher education. So what I'm trying to do is to figure out how we're going to make this system work. And one of the things, I guess, in having been in the central office, because having served as a president on a college campus for over 10 years, I went to a central office to administer a state system of two-year colleges, and I know what the reputation is, that it's a central and often viewed and stereotyped as a bureaucracy. It kind of reminds me of saying, you know, I'm here from the IRS and I'm going to help you. Well, that's the same thing that we sometimes think about central offices. I'm in the central office and I want to help you. And it's kind of an oxymoron that people say, that's a contradiction in terms. But I want to change that stereotype, and that's one of my goals, is to make sure that we change and show that we are a facilitator of the institutions and the colleges. And so I'm beginning to put together my administrative team. And there are 3 critical people that are working with me, 2 others, myself, and 2 chancellors. I've got a chancellor of a community college, Dr. Tony Newberry. And Dr. Newberry came from the community college system under the University of Kentucky, and when we came over to KCTCS, has had a great deal of experience, understanding, and knowledge. And then I hired Dr. Keith Bird as well as the chancellor of the technical colleges, and he was one of those individuals that said, I want to come with you if you ever have a chance to hire somebody. And he was with me in South Carolina and has come now to help shape and form this new system of higher education. So over the next 6 months, we're going to take some time, the 3 of us in particular, in visiting the states. Our goal right now is to visit every single community and technical college throughout our system. And we intend to gain knowledge of what we are doing and what are the concerns and the issues. Because when you take the entity of KCTCS, we've been created by the combination of a long history of community colleges that were governed under the University of Kentucky and a system of technical colleges that came from state government, most recently from workforce development. They have been bounced around over the years in different administrations, and that's where they most recently came from. So you can imagine, I kind of look at it as putting together and creating a new marriage. And in some ways, these two entities have been divorced, and you're kind of putting them together, and now we're creating something new. And I hear frequently about, you know, when you put two families together, you got children of both marriages, and then the family begins talking about his and hers and ours, and that's what we're facing there. So you can just imagine the complexities of what's happening throughout our system as we put together these two new systems of higher education. I deal, for example, with 5 different personnel policies because they all came from different parts, and so 4 of them came from the institutions, and then 1 we're creating a brand new one. So it's an important thing for us to do, and I think what Kentucky is doing is extremely important of how we're going to address the two-year education needs of Kentucky. So I want to talk secondly about how KCTCS fits into the higher education structure. I've given you a little brief on terms of what I see and where I'm going with KCTCS to create this vision, to create a strategic plan and put it all together and tying it into Vision 2020. But KCTCS, when we look at it, on the spectrum of education from P through 16, that we're slap dab in the middle of all of education. We were talking yesterday in a President's Council meeting, talking about the layer cake model, and that's what we have in education. And KCTCS is layered between the secondary schools, the regional universities, and the research universities. But as Dr. Eaglin said, what we've got is that we've been created as the 9th entity of higher education in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. There are 2 research universities, 6 regional universities, and KCTCS. So we are part of you. We're part of the family of higher education. We're governed just like you are. We're governed by a board of regents that has 14 members. And it's kind of interesting because our 14 members have 11 votes. Now, how do you do that? And they all have a vote. But some of them have a half a vote. And so we've got a situation in which, because we want to make sure that we had representation from the faculty and staff and the students, we've got a representative from each one of those sectors on our board, which gives us 6, and each one of those have a half a vote. So we've got a total of 11 votes that we have to. So when we go and get ready to count, we got to make sure, you know, did we get 5.5 versus 6 or whatever we ended up with. So it's kind of an interesting process to keep tabs of those. The KCTCS, let me make it very clear, is that we are the 2-year provider of education in the Commonwealth. That's what our charge has been. We have no intentions of turning our institutions into 4-year schools. Ours is a very focused mission to serve the two-year education, up to 2-year education of adults. And what we will offer are certificates, degrees, diplomas. And that's what we'll be offering. And those certificates and degrees and diplomas will lead to either a student that will go to a baccalaureate institution after coming to us for 2 years, or a majority of our students will be leading directly into taking job training, leading directly into employment. That's what we want to do. So our function is to serve the economic engine that was talked about earlier. Speaker Richards talked about economic engine. And if Kentucky is going to get this engine cranked up, it's got to have a trained workforce for us to do that. And that's where we come in, and that's where we play the role of providing the trained workers for society. As he said, you know, in 10 years, there are jobs that don't even exist today. We don't even know what those jobs are, much less how to train for them. So the legislation created a system that allows us to be responsive to the needs, the present needs of business and industry, but be responsive as well to the future needs. So as these new jobs are being created, then we'll be there and ready to step up to the plate and provide those training opportunities. So we're positioned in a very, very unique place in higher education, I believe. But it depends on collaborations and partnerships that we have to develop over the years. We developed the regional post-secondary education centers, for example, in Prestonburg. And at its last meeting, the Council on Post-Secondary Education approved the KCTCS and the Murray State University agreement on management of that facilities. So we're cooperating, we're collaborating with every entity and every agency that we possibly can. Another great example, I believe, of cooperation and collaboration is the 2+2 agreement that we've reached with Morehead State University and Ashland Community College, a neighbor in here. And it creates an articulation program with our nursing. So here, again, is an opportunity that students, they don't need to retake things. They need to make life as simple as possible in getting into careers, and we don't need to make it as difficult. So when we've got articulations in which we've agreed, our faculties have agreed, our faculties have worked together, and institutions have worked together, these are the types of things that we're going to do and will continue to do in the future. So collaborations and articulations amongst the four-year institutions, the comprehensives, as well as the secondary schools, we'll be working very closely with them as well. Now, the third point that I want to address briefly today is the value of fundraising for higher education. Clearly, the Board of Regents of Administration of Morehead State understand this value. And I'm honored to be really a part of it because it includes induction into the Society of Morehead State University Fellows. Now, again, as a new kid on the block, we understand the value of development as well. Let me give you an example. As we took over the University of Kentucky Community College systems, they've just completed a 5-year, what they call Partners in Progress campaign. It was a capital campaign to build capital projects across the state in the community colleges. And in that 5 years, they raised $43 million for our system to build capital projects across the state. That's unprecedented in 2-year education. That doesn't happen. As a matter of fact, it's a national model. It's set a national record for what can be done for 2-year colleges in fundraising, and you can see the value that the community places on our 2-year colleges in our system as well. Now, our technical colleges, we're bringing them on board. Some of them have foundations and some of them do not, and we're working very closely with them. But my concept as well is I'm interested in creating a statewide foundation that will work very closely with the locals, but we'll be gearing towards the things that are needed for KCTCS to help support the ongoing needs. And the General Assembly has been very, very gracious in their support of higher education. But there's things that we need to go for private sources of dollars as well, just like all of higher education does. So I think when we create this foundation, it'll signal our commitment and the public's commitment to the support of this new system. We'll certainly create some influence, hopefully, in enhancing the quality of services as well. So during this next year, we're going to be looking very closely at how we'll do that, but we'll rely on the expertise and the knowledge that has already been developed with our peer institutions at Morehead and other places. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. I want to make sure that what we do, we can take advantage of to pick and choose the best pieces to put this system together. But I guess if I wanted to summarize what I really see is what we need to do and to put it in a very succinct statement, that our mission will simply focus on job training to support economic development in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Because I believe that the wealth of Kentucky will be created, I know, will be created through the private sector. We need to encourage growth and development of business and industry, and that means new industries coming to the state, but it also means existing industries. We need to be able to take care of the training needs of existing industries. We want them to be healthy. We want them to be productive. We want them, I do at least, want them to make as much money as they possibly can because that creates wealth throughout the Commonwealth. But they can't do it without a trained workforce, and that's where we come into being. We will provide that trained workforce. We'll work with our counterparts in higher education and assure that we want to meet the goals of House Bill 1 and Vision 2020. I'm genuinely excited about being a part of Kentucky higher education and especially the reform. But Dr. Eaglin, it's a real honor that you invited me, and I look forward to a long and fruitful relationship in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Mike. A lot of people don't realize the impact when you add a 9th president and you bring them to the table with the other presidents. It's already bearing fruit. And some of these things he's talked about become realities. Why? Because he is sitting, he's an articulate spokesperson for this layer, and I think it really is more than a layer, of education in this state. And when we sit and talk with one another, we can't ignore one another. And I think that's going to have great things occur in the Commonwealth, and I know it's going to happen with his leadership. With that, Mike, stand up here, and we have a little token for you coming here. So I always tell people it's in lieu of pay, but our heart's with it, but it's something I think you'll enjoy. Thank you.
Ron. I appreciate it.
Well, we are here today to say thank you to special friends for their gifts and their efforts on behalf of the university. As Mr. Caudle and I move down to the floor right in front of the podium, I invite Keith Capus, Chief Executive Officer of the Foundation, to assist us in making several award presentations.
Before we start with our presentations, I just informed President McCall that there are a couple other people from his institutions in this area who played hooky today to be with us. He didn't notice them, and I didn't get the note to him in time. We'd also like to recognize Jamie Brown, who's the director of Rowan Technical College. Jamie, pleased to have you with us. And Jerry Grimes.